Well, hey, church family, welcome back to week 5 of this 6-week series. Again, we're looking at what it means to be a member here at Warren as we walk through the 6 core values. Last week, we talked about radical stewardship with Pastor Stephen Newman. And this week, we're going to hop into, like I said, effective engagement and what it looks like to engage those around us in our neighborhoods, in our schools, and beyond. I'm going to read this little excerpt from our website and on our Mission, Vision, Values page. But it says that the church exists to express the compassionate ministry of Jesus Christ, to make his love and grace visible to people all around. To this end, our lives and lifestyle become the visible justification of our faith. It is impossible for the church to be disengaged at a time when a war rages in our culture for human souls. So jumping into it, Nick, what does that really stir for you? Mm-hmm. And why is it critical for the church to be actively engaged in a culture that we live in?
Yeah. I think anybody that begins to study the Bible immediately sees this gap between, okay, this was written 2,000 years ago plus, to people that are very much not like us,
Sure.
not going through the things we're going through.
Did not have an iPad.
That's right. And even the intent of the writer to the audience is like hard to interpret sometimes, right? And so, but the reality is like we're still all human, just like they were at that time. We still all have the same battle with flesh and culture and pressures around us and those sorts of things. Prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it. So like that's where we as the church contextualize what we're doing, how we like bridge the gap to our neighbor, to our workplace, to our school, to whatever God's placed us in light of the truth that exists in the Word and what we've been taught and the power of the Holy Spirit, in our life. So
cool. Well, we're all in life groups here, so speak to life groups for a second. What is a way that our life groups, either individuals in life groups or life groups as a whole, mm-hmm. can effectively engage those outside of our circles that we're in? So whether it is the life group or our local church, mm-hmm. our 4 houses around us, what's a way that we can engage those outside of our normal circles?
Man, this is one of the things I just absolutely am in awe of on a regular basis at our church, at our campus particularly, because I think we just do this so well already. Like Sure. This is something that we that our people just care and they just have compassion and there's a joy that they see a need and they want to meet it. They want to step in and share the love of Christ to people. And so, but yeah, it is, it's seeing the needs of those around us. It's knowing your neighbors well enough to say, hey, can we bring you a meal? You just had, this hard situation you've walked through or whatever. It's knowing the Word well enough to like that you are overflowing with this grace and this truth and this fruit of the Spirit in a way that I'm gonna extend that to the person I work Sure. with that doesn't know the Lord. That there's something in essence different about me that is attractive to the world. That right. That we can simply engage with people in conversation in such a way that that they see the light of Christ in our life. Right. And so like that's the whole challenge is like, yes, Jesus was this Jewish man 2,000 years ago that lived this life. And all that he did had such a cultural significance in its time, but it is super hard for us to understand. One of the things I say a lot when I'm kind of talking about this issue is imagine your great-grandparents trying to understand some of the text conversations that you have on a regular basis.
Group chat.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, what is TTY? Like whatever. What are some of these acronyms, these things that we just take for granted in like cultural speak that we have nowadays? What does that even mean? And so trying to bridge that gap of even just 2 generations Sure. is tough. But then you go back 2,000 years to a completely different like people group and place in the world and language and
Sure.
all those sorts of things. There's obviously huge barriers there. So it's taking the truth of God's word, it's knowing it well enough and studying it with all of our hearts and giving ourselves to it as the authority over our life, and then living out the truth of that in the light of where we live and where God's placed us, right?
Sure. And I would say that a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is contagious, and the world doesn't really know. They wouldn't say like Jesus is what I want, but they would say like you're acting in a way that speaks to my heart, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost contagious. The joy, serving, helping. I mean, all the things you named become contagious.
Yeah, and I think that there is like there's enough cultural knowledge of Jesus and Christianity that sometimes we have to like help our neighbor unlearn something that they might presuppose about who Christ is and what he taught, or he's this bigot person that doesn't want me to be happy.
That's right.
Or just go to church services or whatever. And it's like, no, like we have the opportunity to like express the joy of knowing Christ in such a way that is contagious.
We talk about.
That's right. Yeah. And so, I think that's where, as in the context of our life groups, that we, as we serve and love and even just a simple like hello, like a simple like
a smile.
Just being kind to people can help people like begin to see the love of Christ, because unfortunately that's just not normal anymore. Yeah. Like normal now is like keep to myself, do my thing, do what's right for me, do what makes me happy. And it's so self-centered that when we are others-centered, we're immediately different, which is polarizing, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, quick short story on that. My wife and kids made cookies for the neighbors one time, and they went each door to door delivering them. And one of the families who we hadn't talked much to, definitely hadn't talked about like Christianity or religion much. And it's like they, like speaking to what you said, they understood that my kids and my wife were doing this out of a Christian mindset, because they were like, I go to church too, and then like it was no part of it. We talked about going to church, but it was just like they see these things, and it's like you said, we almost have to untrain. Yeah, almost have to untrain some of that by just being hospitable, being serving and loving. So that's good. On that same page, one of the pushbacks you probably hear a lot, that I hear about a lot.
Paige, you're talking about your wife. Sorry.
Yeah, my wife's name is Paige. One of the pushbacks is that we don't want to be too offensive or too pushy to others. What's your response to that? If someone's in your office or you're talking to somebody about being effective in engagement, and what do you say to someone that don't be too pushy?
Yeah. That's Stephen says it a lot when in preaching, where like you simply have to like care about someone, like in a genuine way, like in giving the love of Christ to someone. Like he often met needs before he like corrected a belief, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so in doing that, like we shouldn't shy away from the truth. But if we're being if we're being brash in any way, like I don't think we're accurately, street corner yelling type person at a ball game. Like I don't think that's effectively. It might be saying truth about who God is, but it's not speaking it in your action. And so, I think there's a way to just genuinely care about people and know them and like have conversation and truly care about what's going on in their life, that like when you have extended that empathy towards them, they're gonna care about what you have to say too. And and I think I don't think it really serves anybody well to just like be unkind and like force what I'm saying on you and all those sorts of things. Yeah.
I think Stephen, I think he did a sermon a few weeks ago, and one of his points was like, just do it. He's like, you're just better off doing it than not doing it. And kindness is one of those things. Like, if you see someone and they're moving into your neighborhood and they're unloading a truck, like it doesn't hurt to just go help them unload a truck, or whatever it is. So I say that because there's a person loading their moving truck right now every day at our house or in our neighborhood. So, but speaking of neighbors, I've heard it said before that the table can be a portal to the kingdom. And Stephen speaks from stage a lot about your table and hospitality.
Right.
But how do we see our table, or how do we see hospitality playing a role in effective engagement?
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons we do life groups the way that we do them. And you guys all know this, that we share a meal, A, because it's modeled in Acts 2, but B, because there's just some kind of wall that drops when we are able to really share, when we are able to eat a meal together, and like we just start talking and having real life conversations. And I think a lot of people approach just a random street conversation with like, what's your angle? What are you coming to me to try to sell me on or whatever? And it's like, when you're sharing a meal, it's like, I just want to know you, you know, like you matter. And so I think it's like, it's imaging, again, what the early church did, but it is also just this setting where it's like somebody can just rest their shoulders and relax a bit, knowing that they can approach you as a person and just like, they know you care, you know?
Sure. Cool. That's great stuff, man. Well, guys, that does it for week number 5. As we talked about effective engagement. So as you guys move away from our conversation to yours, we again hope that it's going to be fruitful and bring on just some great ideas, discussions, and challenges. So as you go into your week, I hope that you'll look at where you are, whether it's at work or in your neighborhood or as a parent or friend or whatever, that you would see those spaces as mission fields where you can effectively engage people. Next week will be our last week. Pastor Stephen Newman will be back next week to talk about our last core value, which is neighbors to the nations. So it seems a little similar to what we talked about this week, but the broad stroke becomes a little bit more broad. So as we go into that, hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you back here next week for the final week of this series.